The storm had no name, but it howled like a beast. Daria stumbled through the razor grass and mud-churned valleys of Delta 9, a world that never welcomed her kind. The sandstorm's bite cut into her lavender skin, already raw from the relentless wind. She clutched the torn remains of her cloak tighter, eyes stinging against the haze. Her boots were long lost in a river of ash-gray sludge, and her feet burned with cold and exhaustion. The last ember of hope flickered when she saw it. A shack. No, not a shack. A shelter. Functional. Intact. And merciful stars. Smoke curled from its chimney. She didn't hesitate. Staggering to the door, she raised a trembling hand and knocked. Once, twice, a third time, weakly. Then the door opened, and the warmth of firelight spilled out like a wave. Behind it stood a human. She had only heard stories of them. Unpredictable, fierce, emotional, dangerous. Yet here one stood, tall, wrapped in worn thermal gear, with a scruffy beard and eyes like carved granite. He looked at her as one might a stray animal. Not unkindly, not kindly, just wary. "I have nothing," she whispered hoarsely, "but I offer myself for shelter. Just let me stay until the storm passes." The silence stretched long enough for her to regret every step she'd taken toward this place. Then the man stepped aside. "Come in," he said. Inside was heaven. The interior was modest, a single-room prefab cabin with solar lanterns, a repurposed fusion core, and the warmth of a real fire crackling in a stone-lined hearth. Blankets lined the walls, insulation against the cold. A kettle whistled gently atop a makeshift stove. The air smelled like wood smoke and cinnamon. Saria collapsed just inside the doorway, breathing in that scent like it was life itself. The man didn't touch her. He simply walked over to a shelf, grabbed a metal tin, and tossed a packet of something, rations, into a pan. "You need food more than warmth," he said. "I'm Jacob." "Sarah," she managed. She hadn't expected kindness. Not really. She'd offered what little dignity she had left for a few hours of shelter, and instead she was being fed. Jacob didn't talk much that first night. He handed her a bowl of stew, thick, hearty, and unrecognizable but delicious, and pointed to a bedroll in the corner. "You sleep there," he said. "I'll take the chair." She expected him to come to her in the dark, to claim what she had offered, but he never did. 3 days passed before the storm began to die. Saria spent them sleeping, eating, and watching Jacob with growing confusion. He was a man of few words and precise movements. Each morning he would rise before the sun, reinforce the shelter, check the solar panels, and chart weather patterns on a cracked data pad. He didn't ask her questions, never demanded to know where she'd come from or who she'd run from. She watched him mend a broken atmospheric scrubber with the patience of a surgeon. She watched him share his last jar of preserved fruit like it was the most casual thing in the world. She'd lived among merchants, mercenaries, and even kings, but she'd never seen anyone like this. "You never asked what I meant," she said quietly one night, as they shared a mug of synthesized tea by the fire. Jacob looked up. "What you meant when I said I offered myself. You didn't ask what I was willing to do for shelter." "I didn't need to," he said simply. "Why not?" He stirred his tea, slow and steady. "Because you were scared, hungry, cold. That's all I needed to know." She looked away, throat tight. "And you expect nothing?" "I expect you to heal," he said, "and rest. After that, you can decide who you want to be." The storm ended, but Sarial didn't leave. Not because she had nowhere to go, though that part was true, but because she didn't want to leave. She started helping. First, in small ways. She cleaned utensils, sorted dried supplies, took careful notes on weather readings. Then bigger ways. She learned to replace fuses, cook using human rations, even calibrate the outer sensors. Jacob never stopped her, but he never asked her to either. They developed a rhythm, quiet, seamless, unspoken. He told her he'd been stationed on Delta 9 during the frontier collapse. He hadn't expected to survive the orbital bombings, and when the war ended he stayed, maybe out of guilt. Maybe because it was easier than returning to a galaxy that no longer made sense. "I buried 3 comrades out there," he told her once, voice low. "I'm the last." Saria had no comrades left, just scars, and a past she hadn't dared share. Until one night, as frost glazed the window panes and the stars returned to the sky, she spoke. "I was sold," she whispered, "not once, many times. A slave, a concubine, a bargaining chip between warlords." Jacob said nothing, just stared into the fire. "I ran because I couldn't take it anymore. They beat the last girl who tried. But I had a knife. I didn't look back." Still, he said nothing. But his silence was not hollow. It held space, held her. "I thought no one would ever see me as anything but something to use," she said. "Then I met you." When she looked up, Jacob met her eyes. "You're not a thing, Saria. You never were." Seasons passed. They expanded the shelter, reinforced the solar array, planted a garden dome using salvaged tech from a downed shuttle. Saria's cheeks grew color again. She laughed more often. She started braiding her hair instead of letting it fall tangled. Jacob noticed, but said nothing. Until one night, she found him staring at an old holopic, a woman and a child in his arms. "My wife," he said. "My daughter. Gone in the bombings?" Saria placed her hand on his, not as a gesture of comfort, but as a promise. "I can't replace them," she said. "I wouldn't ask you to, but I want to be here with you." He closed his fingers around hers. "Then stay." 2 years later, travelers came. Scouts from the New Concord, mapping lost colonies. They were stunned to find the outpost operational, shocked to meet Jacob and Saria, alive, thriving, calm. One of the scouts, a young Zilari woman, whispered to Saria as they loaded data into their ship. "You live here? With him?" Saria nodded. "You're not afraid?" Saria smiled softly. "I was, but he gave me shelter." The scout tilted her head. "So, you stayed because he was kind?" "No," Saria said, looking back at the cabin and the man chopping wood beneath a pale sky. "I stayed because he gave me something more than survival. He gave me warmth, love, a home." Years later, when the records were recovered and tales were told of survivors across the scarred rim, their story became legend. Not of war, not of victory, but of something rarer. A broken soldier and a forgotten slave who found one another in the silence of a storm and chose love over survival every time.